You settle into a gentle stillness, as though the world has agreed to lower its voice just for you. Your body rests, your breathing softens, and in this quiet space you begin to notice something subtle but constant. Moments are passing, not rushing, not hurrying, simply moving on. They arrive, they linger briefly, and then they leave. None of them turn around to look back. You do not chase them. You simply notice them, like leaves drifting past on slow water. You are used to thinking of time as numbers on a clock, dates on a calendar, alarms that wake you and reminders that pull you forward. But here, in this calm, time feels different. It feels more like motion than measurement, more like a current than a schedule. You sense it not with your eyes, but with your body. Each breath begins and ends. Each thought rises and fades. Even stillness has a direction. As you lie here, you realize that nothing you experience ever truly stays. Sensations soften. Sounds dissolve into silence. The present moment does not freeze when you notice it. Continues, flowing onward, carrying you with it. You are not standing beside time. You are inside it, moving as it moves, whether you try to or not. This movement is quiet, almost polite. Time does not push. It does not announce itself. It simply goes forward. You can remember earlier today, earlier this year, earlier in your life. But you cannot remember tomorrow. The past feels settled, like a room you have already walked through. The future feels open, like a hallway dimly lit, waiting. This difference is not an accident. It is one of the most important clues about the nature of reality. Scientists often speak of time as having an arrow. An arrow has direction. It points one way and not the other. Time's arrow is not something you can see or touch, but you can feel its presence in every ordinary moment. You feel it when a sound fades instead of growing louder. You feel it when a cup falls and shatters instead of gathering itself back together. You feel it when your body grows tired instead of younger. Yet for now, you do not need equations or definitions. You only need attention. Time's arrow first reveals itself not in laboratories, but in living rooms, bedrooms, and quiet nights like this one. It reveals itself in the way experiences unfold and never rewind. Even your breathing follows it. Air flows in, then out, never the reverse. As your awareness drifts gently, you may notice how comfort comes from predictability. You trust that the night will deepen, that sleep will come, that morning will eventually follow. This trust is built on time's direction. If time could reverse without warning, rest would feel impossible. Safety would dissolve. The forward flow allows patterns to exist, and patterns allow calm. The mind often resists this flow, wishing to hold onto pleasant moments or undo painful ones. But the body seems to understand better. Muscles relax. Heartbeats continue. Cells quietly do their work, moment by moment, without hesitation. On the smallest scales inside you, processes unfold in sequences that only make sense forward. Life depends on this steady progression. Even memory follows the arrow. You remember because moments have already passed. Memory is like a gentle echo, proof that time has moved on. You cannot remember the future because it has not yet taken shape. This simple fact carries deep meaning. It tells you that time's direction is woven into thought itself. As you sink deeper into rest, you may sense that time is not an enemy stealing moments away. It is more like a companion, walking beside you, guiding experiences into order. Without its direction, there would be no stories, no learning, no growth. Everything would blur into confusion. Tonight, you are not asked to solve time or control it. You are only invited to feel its quiet presence. Like a river in the dark, it moves steadily, whether watched or unseen. And as you drift with it, another question begins to form, soft and unhurried, about why this flow always seems to carry things from neat beginnings toward gentle change. You may imagine time as a straight line, but in lived experience it feels more like a slow unfolding. Morning light becomes afternoon warmth, then evening shadow, then night. Each phase eases into the next without sharp edges. You never feel the exact instant when one moment becomes another. The transition is always smooth, like the gradual deepening of your breath as sleep approaches. Clocks attempt to slice this flow into equal pieces, but those slices are inventions. Inside you, time stretches and compresses. A peaceful moment can feel wide and generous. A difficult one can feel heavy and long. Still, both move in the same direction. No emotion, no thought, no sensation ever runs backward to its source. Even in complete darkness, with eyes closed and the world hushed, time continues. You do not have to watch it for it to exist. It carries you through dreams, through healing, through quiet repair. This is one of its most gentle qualities. Time does not demand attention. It simply supports becoming. On the surface, the universe appears calm and orderly. Objects rest on tables. Rooms hold their shapes. Your body feels like a single, stable thing. But beneath this calm, countless tiny motions are unfolding. Particles shift. Energy moves. Balance is always being renegotiated. The forward direction of time allows these changes to accumulate instead of cancel out. If time could reverse even briefly, meaning would unravel. Causes would lose their effects. Actions would forget their consequences. You sense this intuitively, which is why reversal feels unsettling even to imagine. Your comfort with forward motion is not learned. It is built into how you exist. As the night deepens, you might notice that letting go becomes easier. You stop trying to hold moments in place. You allow thoughts to pass without following them. This is a small act of trust in time's direction. You allow it to carry you onward, knowing it has always done so before. Soon, attention itself softens. The sharp edges of awareness blur. This too follows the arrow. Wakefulness gently loosens into sleep, not by force, but by quiet transition. And as you drift, you begin to sense that the forward flow of time is tied to another subtle truth, one about how order relaxes, spreads, and slowly transforms. That understanding waits just ahead, like sheets slowly wrinkling beneath a resting body. You rest within the slow rhythm of the night, and your attention drifts toward the small details that usually go unnoticed. The way fabric creases beneath you, the way air shifts as you breathe. Nothing snaps or breaks. Nothing announces a transformation. And yet, everything is subtly changing. Order does not vanish suddenly. It softens, loosens, and gently rearranges itself while you are not watching. You may picture a freshly made bed at the start of the evening. Sheets smooth, corners tucked, surfaces calm and precise. As the night unfolds, that order relaxes. A shoulder presses here, a leg shifts there. By morning, the bed tells a story of movement and rest. No one forced the change. It simply happened because motion happened. This is how the universe prefers to behave. In science, this quiet tendency has a name: entropy. But you do not need to hold the word tightly. Tonight, entropy is not a rule or a formula. It is a feeling. Feels like spreading, like opening, like the gentle way certainty loosens into possibility. Entropy describes how systems naturally move from tightly arranged states into more relaxed ones, not because something is broken, but because there are more ways to be loose than perfectly arranged. You can sense this even now. Your thoughts at the start of the evening may have been sharp and structured. Lists, plans, concerns. As sleep approaches, those thoughts soften. They wander. They blend. Focus dissolves into drifting images and half-formed ideas. This is not failure. It is a natural transition from order into openness. Imagine a drop of ink falling into a glass of water. At first, the ink is contained, distinct, easy to point to. Over time, it spreads, branching into delicate tendrils, until the water becomes evenly tinted. The ink never gathers itself back into a single drop. Not because it cannot remember how, but because there are vastly more ways for the ink to be spread out than to remain perfectly contained. Entropy follows possibility. This tendency appears everywhere. A hot cup of tea cools on a table. The warmth spreads into the surrounding air until everything feels the same gentle temperature. The heat does not rush back into the cup on its own. Balance prefers sharing over hoarding. Nature leans toward evenness, toward distribution, toward rest. Order is not fragile in a dramatic way. It is simply temporary. And that is not a flaw. Order allows structure, meaning, and clarity to exist long enough for experience to happen. Then entropy slowly takes over, smoothing edges and widening possibilities. Without this softening, the world would be frozen, unable to adapt or breathe. You might notice how your body participates in this process. Muscles tense during the day, holding posture and intention. At night, they release. Energy that was once tightly directed into movement and focus now spreads into warmth and calm. This release is entropy at work within you, allowing rest to arrive. Even rooms change when left alone. Dust settles. Scents fade. Sounds dissolve into silence. These changes do not signal decay. They signal equilibrium, the universe's preference for balance over sharp contrast. Entropy is not destruction. It is the quiet leveling that follows activity. Scientists describe entropy as a measure of how many arrangements are possible within a system. A neatly stacked deck of cards has very few specific arrangements that look ordered. A shuffled deck has countless possible configurations. When cards are shuffled, they move toward the state with more possibilities. Not because chaos is favored, but because freedom is. This idea extends far beyond cards and ink and bedsheets. It reaches into chemistry, biology, and even thought. Your brain forms patterns to understand the world, then gently releases them when they are no longer needed. Learning itself is a dance between order and entropy, between structure and openness. You may feel comfort knowing that change does not require effort. The universe does not strain to evolve. It relaxes into change. Entropy does not rush. Patiently accumulates, moment by moment, through countless tiny movements that add up to transformation. This explains why perfect stillness is so rare. Even when nothing seems to be happening, something is. Particles vibrate, energy shifts, balance is being negotiated quietly in the background. The appearance of stillness is simply change moving slowly enough to feel calm. As you lie here, your body temperature gently adjusts to the room. Your breathing becomes more regular. Thoughts drift without sharp edges. You are experiencing entropy not as loss, but as permission. Permission to let go of rigid order. Permission to soften. This softening is not random. It follows time's direction, always forward. Order relaxes after it forms, never before. A room must be tidy before it can become untidy. A thought must exist before it can fade. Entropy depends on time's arrow, and time's arrow reveals itself through entropy. The past feels structured because its changes have already settled. The present feels fluid because it is still unfolding. The future feels open because entropy has not yet smoothed its paths. This relationship between time and order shapes every experience you have ever known. You may notice that trying to hold onto order creates tension. Holding onto moments, insisting they remain unchanged, creates strain. Letting entropy do its gentle work brings ease. Sleep arrives not by control but by release. As your awareness grows softer, you begin to sense that this quiet spreading, this relaxation of order, is not separate from warmth, from memory, from life itself. It is all part of the same forward motion, the same unseen arrow guiding change. And soon, that arrow becomes clearer, not through words, but through the simple fact that some things only ever happen one way. You remain resting in the quiet, and as your thoughts slow, everyday moments begin to glow with new meaning. Things you have seen 1,000 times now appear gently unfamiliar. Not strange, but newly noticeable. You realize that almost everything you experience carries a subtle direction. A quiet sense of before and after that never reverses. Imagine a cup slipping from a hand. Falls, strikes the floor, and breaks. Pieces scatter outward, sharp and final. You have never seen the reverse. Shards lifting, reassembling, rising smoothly into a waiting cup. Not because it is forbidden by imagination, but because reality does not behave that way. The universe prefers sequences that unfold forward, never backward. This preference is not announced. There is no signpost that says, "This way only." And yet, you feel it constantly. A sound fades after it begins. A candle burns down instead of unburning. Smoke drifts outward, thinning into air. These are not rules you memorize. They are patterns you live inside. Scientists call this pattern the arrow of time. But the arrow is not an object. It has no color, no shape, no location. It is inferred from change itself. You know it exists because of what does not happen. Because some processes feel natural in one direction and impossible in the other. You may notice how stories depend on this arrow. A story begins, unfolds, and ends. If events arrived out of order, meaning would dissolve. Cause would forget effect. Learning would lose its foundation. Time's arrow quietly supports coherence, allowing events to build upon one another. Memory offers one of the clearest clues. You remember what has already happened. You never remember what has not. This asymmetry is so familiar that it feels obvious, but it is deeply revealing. Memory is not just stored information. It is a record of entropy already increased, of change already settled. When you recall a moment, that moment is fixed. Its possibilities are gone. The future, by contrast, remains open because its changes have not yet occurred. You stand at the edge of possibility, carried forward by time's unseen current. Even your body reflects this direction. You digest food, releasing energy. You do not gather scattered energy back into untouched meals. Cells repair damage but never return exactly to earlier states. Growth leaves traces. Healing leaves scars. Life proceeds forward, accumulating history. This forward-only behavior is not imposed from outside. It emerges naturally from how matter and energy interact. The same principles that allow warmth to spread and order to soften also ensure that time has a direction. Entropy and the arrow of time are deeply intertwined, like two sides of the same quiet truth. You may imagine rewinding a video of a glass shattering. On the screen, the reversal looks smooth, but your mind immediately knows it is wrong. Something inside you recognizes the violation. That recognition is not cultural. It is physical. Your intuition is tuned to time's arrow because you have always lived within it. Even language reflects this bias. You speak of causes leading to effects, of past shaping present, of future arriving later. You do not need to be taught this structure. It arrives with awareness itself. Consciousness unfolds forward, moment by moment, never skipping backward. As you breathe, notice how each inhale comes after the last exhale. The sequence never flips. You cannot exhale tomorrow's breath today. The present is always the newest moment, carrying the freshest imprint of change. This arrow is not something pushing you. It is something allowing you to exist coherently. Without it, sensations would overlap without order. Identity would blur. Experience would lose continuity. Time's direction is what allows you to be you, moment after moment. At night, when thoughts loosen and dreams begin to form, the arrow remains. Dreams follow sequences too, even when they bend logic. One image leads to another. Even the most surreal experiences unfold forward, never backward. The arrow of time does not mean everything must rush. Forward does not mean fast. Change can be slow, gentle, almost imperceptible. Mountains erode grain by grain. Stars burn for billions of years. Time's arrow is patient. You may sense comfort in this patience. Knowing that change happens gradually allows rest. Nothing demands instant transformation. Everything unfolds at its own pace, guided by the same steady direction. Some physical laws work equally well forward or backward. The motion of planets, for example, can be described mathematically in either direction. But lived reality does not feel reversible. The difference lies not in motion itself, but in how energy spreads and how information is recorded. Once information is dispersed, once heat spreads, once a pattern dissolves, reconstructing the exact past becomes unimaginably unlikely. Not impossible in theory, but unreachable in practice. The universe does not forbid reversal. It simply makes forward movement overwhelmingly favored. This favoritism shapes everything you know. It allows mornings to follow nights. It allows learning to build. It allows sleep to come after wakefulness. You are carried along not by force, but by probability gently leaning forward. As your awareness drifts, you may feel gratitude for this unseen guide. Time's arrow gives structure without command. It supports becoming without instruction. It allows you to let go, knowing there is no need to hold the present still. Soon, another layer of understanding approaches, one that deepens this sense of direction. You begin to notice that time's arrow is not only seen in broken cups and fading sounds, but also in warmth itself, in how heat moves, spreads, and whispers the same story in a different language. You rest in the hush of the night, and warmth becomes easier to notice. It is not dramatic. It does not ask for attention. It simply exists, surrounding you, touching your skin, settling into your muscles. Warmth feels comforting, familiar, almost emotional. But beneath that feeling lies a quiet story of motion, one that speaks the same language as time itself. When you feel warmth, you are feeling movement. Tiny movements, too small to see, unfolding everywhere at once. Inside your body, particles are gently jostling, passing energy from one to another. This motion is not chaotic or wild. It is steady, rhythmic, and deeply connected to rest. Warmth is motion slowed enough to feel calm. You may imagine heat as something that lives inside objects, like a substance stored away. But heat is not a thing. It is a process. It is energy on the move, drifting from places where it is concentrated toward places where it is not. It spreads the way breath spreads through your chest, the way relaxation spreads through your limbs. Place your attention on a warm cup resting in your hands. At first, the cup feels hot compared to the air. Over time, the warmth softens. The cup cools. The room warms slightly. Eventually, the difference disappears. This is not loss. It is sharing. Energy prefers to be shared. Heat never gathers itself back into one place without effort. Warmth does not leap from the air back into the cup on its own. Just as time does not reverse, heat does not naturally flow backward. This directionality is not coincidence. It is another expression of the same underlying tendency. In physics, this tendency is described by the laws of thermodynamics, but you do not need the language of laws tonight. You can feel the truth of it directly. Warmth spreads. Cold feels like the absence of motion, not the presence of something else. When motion increases, warmth follows. When motion spreads, balance arrives. Your body understands this instinctively. When you are cold, you curl inward, conserving energy. When you are warm, you relax, allowing motion to flow. Sleep comes more easily when warmth is balanced, not intense, not absent. Comfort lives in the middle. At the smallest scales, warmth is vibration. Atoms trembling gently in place, bumping, nudging, exchanging energy in countless tiny interactions. These interactions do not coordinate. There is no leader directing them. And yet, a pattern emerges. Energy spreads evenly. Hot becomes warm. Warm becomes neutral. This spreading mirrors time's arrow. Heat moves from past concentration toward future balance. Once spread, it does not spontaneously gather again. This is why you can warm your hands on a cup, but the cup does not warm itself by touching your hands later. Direction matters. You may notice that warmth carries memory. A sunlit room remains warm after the sun sets. A blanket holds your heat even after you shift. This memory is physical, not emotional, but it follows the same logic. Energy leaves traces as it moves forward. Fire makes this visible. Flames dance upward, releasing heat and light. The fuel transforms, never returning to its original state. Ash remains. Smoke rises. Energy disperses into the air. The process feels final, irreversible. This finality is not destruction. It is transformation guided by direction. Even stars obey this language. Deep within them, immense heat drives fusion, turning simple elements into heavier ones. Over time, stars exhaust their fuel. They cool. They change. Heat flows outward, shaping the life cycle of the cosmos. The same principle that warms your hands governs the heavens. You may find comfort in this universality. The warmth you feel now is connected to the warmth of distant stars. Motion links scales together, from the smallest vibrations to the largest structures. Time's arrow threads through them all, quietly consistent. When you cool down after exertion, your body releases heat into the surrounding air. Sweat evaporates, carrying energy away. This cooling feels refreshing, calming. Again, heat flows outward, never reversing on its own. The body knows how to cooperate with this flow. In deep rest, your metabolism slows. Motion becomes gentler. Heat production balances with heat loss. This balance supports sleep. You are not fighting entropy here. You are aligning with it, letting energy settle into equilibrium. Even emotions carry a metaphorical warmth. Excitement feels hot, restless, energetic. Calm feels warm but steady. Anxiety feels overheated, unable to spread. Rest allows emotional energy to distribute evenly, easing tension. Science often feels distant because it is presented without sensation. But heat bridges that distance. You feel physics every time warmth touches you. You live inside thermodynamics without realizing it. The universe speaks through temperature in a language your body understands. As you drift, you may sense that heat is time made tangible. It reveals direction through sensation. You can feel where energy has been and where it is going. Warmth fades. Cold equalizes. Balance approaches. This movement is not rushed. Heat spreads at its own pace, just as time does. The slowness is part of its gentleness. Nothing demands urgency. Everything unfolds. Soon, another realization approaches. You begin to sense that entropy, time, and heat are not harsh forces pushing the universe apart, but quiet tendencies allowing it to relax. And in that relaxation, meaning continues to form. You remain suspended in the calm of the night, and the idea of entropy gently shifts within you. It no longer feels sharp or ominous. It softens, becoming something closer to a habit of the universe rather than a threat. Entropy is not an enemy undoing the world. It is a tendency, a quiet preference for ease over tension, for openness over confinement. You may have heard entropy described as disorder, and that word can sound unsettling. Disorder suggests loss, collapse, things falling apart. But tonight, entropy feels less like destruction and more like relaxation, like unclenching a fist, like exhaling after holding your breath. Entropy is what happens when systems stop being held tightly and are allowed to rest. Imagine holding a handful of sand. When your fingers are clenched, the sand stays contained, pressed into a rough shape. When you open your hand, the grains slip through easily, spreading into countless paths. Nothing is damaged. Nothing is broken. The sand simply follows gravity and possibility. Entropy works in much the same way. The universe does not push systems toward disorder with force. It simply allows them to drift toward states that are easier to maintain. There are far more ways for things to be spread out than perfectly arranged. This abundance of possibility makes openness overwhelmingly likely. Entropy follows likelihood, not malice. You can feel this in your own body. When you are tense, energy is focused and constrained. Muscles hold, thoughts narrow, breath becomes shallow. When you relax, energy spreads. Muscles release. Breathing deepens. Awareness widens. The relaxed state is not weaker. It is simply more spacious. Entropy is often misunderstood because humans value order so deeply. Order allows planning, building, remembering. Feels safe. And indeed, order is essential. But order is also temporary by nature. It exists long enough to serve a purpose, then gently yields to change. Entropy does not erase order instantly. It slowly invites it to soften. Think of a sandcastle by the shore. The shape is deliberate, meaningful, beautiful. The waves do not attack it out of cruelty. They simply continue moving. Over time, the sharp edges blur. The castle returns to sand. The materials remain, only the arrangement changes. Entropy respects material even as it reshapes form. In this way, entropy is not decay, but transition. It is the reason processes complete instead of remaining frozen. It is why you can cook food, digest it, and gain energy. It is why learning leaves traces, and why sleep restores rather than erases. Even growth depends on entropy. A seed contains tightly packed potential. As it grows, energy flows outward. Structures form, then adjust. Leaves spread. Roots branch. Life uses entropy rather than fighting it, channeling energy flow into patterns that last just long enough. This perspective changes how you feel about time moving forward. Time is not rushing you toward loss. It is accompanying systems as they relax into more probable states. Forward movement is not punishment. It is participation. You may notice that anxiety often comes from resisting entropy, wanting moments to stay fixed, wanting outcomes to remain certain, wanting control over every arrangement. The body tightens under this resistance. Rest arrives when resistance eases. When you lie still and allow sleep to approach, you are aligning with entropy. Consciousness loosens its grip. Thoughts scatter softly. Awareness spreads. Nothing is lost. You are not disappearing. You are transitioning into a state that requires less effort to maintain. Entropy explains why maintaining order requires work. Cleaning, organizing, planning, focusing. These are all acts of local resistance. They are meaningful, necessary, and valuable. But they are not permanent. They are moments of structure held against a broader tendency toward openness. This is not a flaw in the universe. It is a feature that allows change to happen at all. Without entropy, nothing would evolve. Nothing would age. Nothing would adapt. Everything would remain locked in its initial arrangement, unable to respond to new conditions. Time's arrow emerges from this tendency. Because systems prefer to move toward states with more possibilities, change accumulates. Once change spreads, reversing it becomes overwhelmingly unlikely. The arrow points forward because forward is where openness lies. You may feel relief in realizing that entropy does not judge outcomes. It does not label states as good or bad. It simply reflects probability. What happens most easily happens most often. The universe takes the path of least resistance, the path that requires no supervision. This is why entropy feels gentle when you stop resisting it. Like floating instead of swimming. Like allowing yourself to be carried by water rather than fighting the current. Effort becomes optional. As sleep draws closer, your mind mirrors this tendency. You stop forcing coherence. Images blend. Thoughts drift without resolution. Meaning loosens its edges. This is not confusion. It is a different kind of order, one that requires less precision. Even death, often framed as entropy's ultimate victory, is more accurately a redistribution. Energy spreads. Materials return to cycles. Nothing vanishes. Everything changes form. Entropy ensures continuity, not erasure. You may sense that this understanding removes fear from time's passage. Forward movement no longer feels like a countdown. Feels like a widening. Each moment opens into many possible arrangements, then settles gently into one. As you rest, you realize that balance is not a fixed point but a process. Entropy guides systems toward balance by allowing energy to spread naturally. No command is issued. No plan is followed. Balance emerges. This quiet preference shapes everything from cooling tea to aging stars. It shapes memory, warmth, motion, and rest. It shapes the way nights deepen and mornings arrive. Soon, your attention begins to notice another subtle effect of this process. You sense how memory itself is shaped by entropy, how meaning clings to what has already unfolded. That understanding waits softly ahead, ready to meet you as the night continues. You lie quietly, and your thoughts drift backward without effort. Not far, just enough to notice the shape of remembering. Images rise gently. A conversation, a sound, a feeling from earlier today. These memories arrive fully formed, settled, complete. They do not shimmer with possibility. They feel finished. This sense of completion is the first clue. Memory only ever points one way. You have never remembered tomorrow. You have never recalled a moment that has not yet happened. Even imagining the future feels different from remembering. Imagination is soft, flexible, easily altered. Memory feels firm, anchored, resistant to change. This difference is not a trick of the mind. It is a reflection of how time and entropy work together. Memory forms where change has already occurred. When an event unfolds, energy moves, patterns shift, and entropy increases. That increase leaves traces. In your brain, connections subtly adjust. Chemical signals strengthen or weaken. Physical changes, however small, encode what has happened. Memory is not stored outside of time. It is carved by time's forward movement. You remember because the past has already relaxed into a settled state. Its possibilities are gone. Its outcomes are fixed. Entropy has done its quiet work, smoothing countless alternatives into one realized path. That path becomes the story you recall. The future, by contrast, has not yet spread its energy. Its possibilities remain open. Nothing has settled. No traces exist to record. This is why the future feels uncertain and the past feels solid. One has entropy behind it. The other does not. Even emotionally, this difference is clear. Regret and nostalgia pull backward. Hope and anxiety pull forward. But only the backward pull has detail. You can replay the past with precision. The future appears as outlines, not memories. Meaning gathers where entropy has already unfolded. When you learn something new, memory forms through physical change. Neurons adjust. Pathways strengthen. Energy disperses. Learning leaves a footprint. Forgetting, too, follows entropy. Connections fade when they are no longer reinforced. Memory is not static. It is alive, shaped by ongoing change. Sleep itself plays a role here. As you rest, your brain quietly organizes memories, strengthening some, softening others. This process depends on entropy. Energy flows. Chemicals redistribute. Order forms temporarily, then relaxes. Memory consolidation is not magic. It is physics working gently inside biology. You may notice that emotionally intense moments are easier to remember. Strong feelings involve larger energy shifts. More change leaves deeper traces. A calm, ordinary moment may pass without imprinting strongly. Memory reflects the magnitude of transformation. This does not mean that unremembered moments are meaningless. They still occurred. They still shaped the present subtly. Meaning does not require conscious recall. It requires change. And change has already happened everywhere you have been. The arrow of time ensures that memory always trails behind experience. Consciousness rides forward, leaving a wake of recorded change. You move through the present, and memory quietly accumulates behind you like footprints in sand. This accumulation gives life continuity. Without memory, each moment would stand alone. You would experience endlessly without connection. Entropy allows memory to form by ensuring that processes do not reverse. What has changed remains changed. Even history follows this rule. Records exist because events unfolded and left marks. Documents, ruins, stories. These traces persist because reversing them would require impossible coordination. Entropy protects the past by making reversal extraordinarily unlikely. You may feel comfort in knowing that meaning is not fragile. Once something has happened, it cannot unhappen. Its influence remains, even if memory fades. Entropy ensures that experience leaves residue. At the same time, memory is selective. Not everything is preserved equally. This selectivity arises because maintaining memory requires energy. Systems relax unless effort sustains them. Forgetting is entropy too, a gentle release of detail that no longer serves the present. This balance allows rest. If you remembered everything perfectly, your mind would never quiet. Forgetting creates space. Space allows sleep. Entropy supports peace as much as it supports change. You might notice how stories feel satisfying because they move forward and settle. An unresolved story creates tension. Resolution feels like entropy completing its work. Meaning crystallizes when uncertainty dissolves. The present moment is where entropy is actively unfolding. It feels alive, dynamic, sometimes unstable. The past feels calm because its changes are complete. The future feels open because nothing has settled yet. This explains why wisdom often comes from looking back. Only after entropy has smoothed events into outcomes can patterns be seen clearly. The arrow of time gives clarity only in hindsight. As you drift closer to sleep, memories may surface uninvited. This is not random. As conscious control loosens, energy redistributes. Thoughts wander. Memory traces activate softly, without urgency. You do not need to follow them. They are simply echoes of change, reminders that time has moved forward and left its marks. You can let them pass, knowing they belong where they are. Soon, awareness itself will soften. Memory will pause its active work. But even in sleep, change continues. Your body repairs. Your brain reorganizes. Entropy flows gently onward. And as this chapter settles behind you, another realization approaches. You begin to sense that memory, body, and world are not separate systems, but parts of one continuous flow, a flow you are already inside. You rest within your body, and for a moment you notice how present it is. Not as an object, but as a process. Your chest rises, then falls. Your heart presses forward with steady patience. Heat drifts outward from your skin into the surrounding air. Even in stillness, you are moving. Even in rest, you are participating in the flow of time. Your body is not a solid thing traveling through time. It is an ongoing exchange. Energy enters, energy leaves. Matter rearranges itself moment by moment. Cells replace themselves. Signals pass quietly through nerves. Life happens not by resisting change, but by riding it. Every breath you take is a small act of entropy. Oxygen moves into your lungs, spreads into your blood, releases energy, then leaves again as carbon dioxide. The breath never reverses. It follows a sequence that only works forward. And yet it feels effortless, natural, alive. Your heartbeat does the same. Each contraction pushes blood outward. Each relaxation allows refilling. The rhythm continues because energy flows and does not return exactly as it was. The heart does not rewind, proceeds. And in that steady forward movement you live. You may have thought of entropy as something happening to objects, to systems far away, to stars and machines. But entropy lives in you. It shapes how you move, how you heal, how you grow tired and rest again. You are not carried by time from the outside. Time unfolds through you. Life depends on imbalance. If your body reached perfect equilibrium with its surroundings, life would stop. No heat difference. No chemical gradients. No motion. Life exists because energy flows through you, not because it remains still. Entropy makes that flow possible. You eat food that contains stored energy. Your body breaks it down, releasing that energy into motion, warmth, thought. The ordered structure of food relaxes into new arrangements. Energy spreads. Nothing is wasted. Everything transforms. Even thinking follows this pattern. Neurons fire. Chemicals move. Electrical signals travel and fade. Thoughts arise, linger briefly, then dissolve. You cannot hold a thought still forever. Consciousness itself is dynamic, flowing forward like a stream you cannot step out of. This forward movement is not tiring. It is sustaining. Trying to freeze life would require effort. Allowing it to flow requires trust. Sleep comes when you stop resisting this natural direction. You may notice how tension feels like resistance. Muscles tighten. Breath shortens. Thoughts loop. Energy struggles to move. Relaxation feels like release. Energy spreads again. Entropy resumes its quiet work. Living systems are remarkable because they create temporary order within a larger flow toward openness. Your body builds structure, maintains patterns, repairs itself, all while entropy increases overall. Life is not a contradiction to entropy. It is a collaboration. Plants do this too. They gather energy from sunlight, build complex structures, grow leaves and roots. Over time, they age, shed, return materials to the soil. Entropy continues. Life rides the wave rather than stopping it. You might sense comfort in realizing that effort is not required to move forward. Time carries you whether you push or not. What matters is how gently you allow yourself to be carried. Aging often feels frightening because it is framed as loss. But aging is simply the accumulation of change. Entropy leaves its marks, not as damage but as history. Each mark says, something happened here. Scars, memories, habits, these are records of living inside time. They do not mean something went wrong. They mean something occurred. Your body knows how to rest because it has practiced for a lifetime. Each night, systems slow. Repair begins. Energy redistributes. Entropy does not pause, but it shifts into a gentler mode. You are not turning off. You are rebalancing. Even emotions follow flow. Joy rises, spreads, fades. Sadness does the same. Nothing stays fixed. Feelings move through you because energy moves through you. This movement prevents stagnation. When you resist feelings, they tighten. When you allow them, they soften and pass. This is not psychology alone. It is physics expressed through experience. You may feel separate from the universe, but your body disagrees. You exchange heat with the room, air with the atmosphere, matter with food and water, information with light and sound. Boundaries exist, but they are permeable. Flow connects everything. Time's arrow does not isolate you. It integrates you. You are part of a larger current that includes weather, ecosystems, stars, and galaxies. The same forward tendency that shapes your breath shapes the cosmos. This understanding removes the pressure to control everything. You do not need to force meaning. Meaning emerges from participation, from living forward moment by moment. As sleep approaches, you may feel gratitude for your body's willingness to carry you. It does not ask for permission to breathe. It does not wait for instruction to heal. It trusts the flow because it has always worked. Soon, your awareness will soften further. Conscious thought will loosen. The body will continue without commentary. Entropy will guide balance quietly, efficiently, kindly. And as you drift, another gentle realization begins to surface, that the future feels open not because it is empty, but because its changes have not yet spread. You rest in the gentle pause between thoughts, and your attention turns forward, not with urgency, but with curiosity. The future does not appear as an image or a memory. It feels more like space, open, unfilled, softly waiting. You sense it not as something rushing toward you, but as something wide enough to hold many possible shapes. The past feels different, feels dense, textured, complete. It has weight. You can revisit it in fragments, in stories, in sensations that return with surprising clarity. The future offers none of this. It gives no details, no settled outcomes, only outlines that shift when you look too closely. This difference is not psychological alone. It is physical. The future feels open because entropy has not yet unfolded there. Ahead of you, energy has not yet spread. Arrangements have not yet softened. Outcomes have not yet chosen themselves from the many possibilities available. The future contains low entropy not because it is empty, but because it is undecided. It holds structure without commitment, like a page before words are written. In the past, entropy has already done its work. Energy has flowed. Possibilities have narrowed into outcomes. Traces have formed. Memory exists because change has already happened. The future has no memory because nothing has yet settled enough to be recorded. This is why uncertainty always lies ahead. Not because the future is mysterious by nature, but because it has not yet relaxed into one of its many potential states. Uncertainty is not ignorance. It is openness. You may notice how this openness feels both exciting and unsettling. Possibility carries freedom, but also lack of control. The mind often tries to close the future prematurely, imagining outcomes, rehearsing scenarios. But these imagined futures remain soft, easily replaced by others. They do not feel real because they are not yet shaped by entropy. Even probability reflects this difference. You can calculate chances, but until an event occurs, nothing has committed. Once it happens, probability collapses into fact. Entropy moves forward, leaving certainty behind it. This is why plans change, why surprises occur, why life feels alive rather than scripted. The future remains open because time's arrow has not yet passed through it. In physics, this openness is linked to initial conditions. The present moment contains certain arrangements of energy and matter. From these, many futures are possible. Small variations can lead to different outcomes. As time moves forward, one path is taken, and the others fade into what never happened. The past feels fixed because alternative paths are no longer available. They were possible once, but entropy selected one by allowing energy to flow in a particular way. The selection is not conscious. It is natural. You experience this every day. A single choice leads to one outcome, while countless others dissolve quietly. Once chosen, the path becomes history. You cannot return to the moment before the choice with its full range of possibilities intact. This is not loss. It is definition. Without narrowing, nothing could take shape. The future must be open so that the present can become something specific. Sleep itself depends on this openness. You do not know what dreams will form tonight. They arise spontaneously, shaped by memory and chemistry and chance. Once dreamed, they become part of the past, recorded faintly or forgotten. The openness closes gently behind them. You may find comfort in realizing that uncertainty is not failure to know. It is evidence that time has not yet arrived there. The future remains untouched by entropy's smoothing hand. It has not yet been lived. This perspective softens anxiety. Worry often arises from trying to resolve the future too early, wanting certainty where none can yet exist. When you allow the future to remain open, tension eases. You stop asking it to behave like the past. The arrow of time ensures that openness lies ahead, not behind. You cannot reopen the past to its original uncertainty. You can reinterpret it, learn from it, but its events remain fixed. The future alone holds undecided structure. This also explains creativity. New ideas emerge because the future is not predetermined. Entropy allows novelty by permitting systems to explore different arrangements before settling. Creativity is the mind's way of playing in low-entropy space. Even evolution relies on this openness. Variations arise. Most fade. Some persist. Entropy does not plan outcomes. It allows exploration, then records what survives. You may notice how hope lives in the future, not the past. Hope requires openness. It requires the sense that things could be otherwise. Despair often arises when the future feels closed, imagined as already decided. Remembering entropy restores openness. As you lie here, the future does not demand your attention. It does not need to be solved. It will unfold in its own time, guided by the same gentle tendencies that shaped everything behind you. You are not late. You are not early. You are exactly where openness meets settling, where possibility meets becoming. Soon, entropy will pass through the moments ahead, smoothing them into memory, just as it has always done. For now, they remain spacious, quiet, and full of potential. And as your awareness drifts outward, another realization begins to form, that this openness does not belong only to your life, but to the universe itself, stretching and softening on a cosmic scale. You drift back into yourself slowly, bringing the quiet immensity of the universe along for the ride. It does not feel heavy. It feels reassuring, like knowing the horizon exists even when your eyes are closed. Your body rests where it has always rested, here, in the present, and time continues its gentle movement without asking anything from you. The arrow you have been sensing all along does not sharpen as sleep nears. It softens. It becomes less like a direction to follow and more like a current already holding you. You are no longer trying to understand it. You are allowing it. Your breath moves in and out, steady and unremarkable. Each breath is a small confirmation that forward motion does not require effort. Air arrives, air leaves. Nothing needs to be forced. The body knows how to continue. Time feels different now than it does during the day. It is no longer segmented into tasks or expectations. It stretches. It widens. Minutes lose their edges. This is not time slowing down. It is attention loosening its grip. Entropy hums quietly beneath everything. Not as a warning, not as decay, but as a background rhythm. Energy continues to spread. Tension releases. Systems settle. You feel this as comfort, as heaviness in the limbs, as thoughts growing less distinct. There is nothing you need to hold together anymore. The structures that mattered earlier, plans, identities, worries, can rest. Entropy allows them to soften without disappearing. Tomorrow they may reassemble in familiar forms. For now, they are free to loosen. You may notice how safe it feels to stop controlling the moment. The arrow of time has always carried you forward. Carried you through childhood, through learning, through countless nights like this one. You have never had to push it. You have only ever ridden it. Even now, processes continue beneath awareness. Cells repair themselves. Memories are gently reorganized. Heat redistributes. These changes do not disturb your rest. They support it. The forward movement of time does not mean rushing toward an end. It means continuing, becoming, allowing one state to give way to another. Sleep is one of the most natural expressions of this transition. You do not fall asleep by deciding to. You fall asleep by allowing wakefulness to relax. Entropy guides the transition. Consciousness loosens. Awareness spreads. Control dissolves into rest. There is comfort in knowing that nothing essential is lost in this softening. You do not disappear when you sleep. You simply change how you are present. Time continues. You continue with it. The arrow does not judge where you are along it. There is no correct pace. Some moments feel full and vivid. Others feel thin and quiet. All belong equally to the flow. You may feel gratitude for this steadiness. No matter what thoughts came earlier today, no matter what uncertainties wait in the future, the arrow remains consistent. Forward, patient, reliable. Entropy ensures that no moment must be held forever. Pain softens. Joy fades gently rather than shattering. Nothing stays sharp indefinitely. This is not loss. It is mercy. As your thoughts grow quieter, you may sense a deep alignment between yourself and the universe. Not because you understand it completely, but because you are participating in the same simple rule. Allow change to happen. The universe does not resist its own direction. Stars burn, cool, fade. Galaxies drift. Energy spreads. Balance approaches. In your own small way, you mirror this cosmic behavior each time you rest. Sleep is not a pause in time. It is a different way of moving forward. Dreams unfold. Healing occurs. The arrow continues its work while you float gently along it. There is no need to stay alert. Nothing will be missed. Time does not require supervision. It has been doing this far longer than you have been aware of it. As awareness dims, boundaries blur. The distinction between thought and sensation softens. This, too, is entropy at work, not erasing you but easing you. You may notice that fear fades when resistance fades. When you stop asking time to slow or reverse, peace arrives naturally. Forward movement becomes comforting rather than threatening. The present moment widens into something spacious enough to hold rest. You are not standing at the edge of time. You are resting inside it. Everything you have explored tonight, order, change, memory, warmth, the future, the universe, converges here. Not as ideas to hold, but as understanding to release. You do not need to remember these thoughts tomorrow. They have already done their work. They have eased you into alignment with what has always been true. Time moves forward. Entropy spreads gently. You are safe within this flow. The arrow does not rush you, carries you. And now, as sleep takes you more fully, you rest exactly where you are meant to be, moving forward, quietly, without effort.